In the wild, hunters rely on a simple fact. Animals are creatures of habit. They move, feed, and react in strict, unvarying patterns, making them incredibly easy for a predator to track. Humans are the only creatures with the cognitive equipment to override that instinct. We can consciously choose to improvise and break our own routines. Yet, most people don't. We cling to familiar habits because routine requires zero mental effort. Plus, when we act exactly as others expect, it makes them feel comfortable and safe. This psychological need for predictability explains why natural disasters are so terrifying. A cyclone doesn't operate on a schedule. It strikes with zero warning, leaving us entirely defenseless against its next move. When you lock yourself into a predictable pattern, you hand other people a comfortable sense of control over you. But when you scramble those patterns, when you inject calculated chaos into your behavior, you keep them in a constant state of suspended terror. In 1972, the World Chess Championship featured Boris Spassky, a Russian grandmaster famous for his calm demeanor. Spassky possessed an uncanny ability to read an opponent's strategy, logically dissecting their moves and defeating them at their own game. His challenger, Bobby Fischer, realized he couldn't win by playing into Spassky's logical framework. So Fischer scrambled his own patterns before the matches even started. He arrived late, he complained about the lighting, the cameras, and even the chairs, constantly threatening to walk away. Then, in the very first game, Fischer did something entirely inexplicable. He made a terrible, seemingly unforced error early in the match. Spassky knew Fischer fought to the bitter end, even when facing checkmate. This deliberate flaw completely broke the Russian's mental model of how a rational grandmaster should behave. He couldn't figure out the trap. Unable to read his opponent, Spassky's mind began to unravel. He started making blunders. By the 14th match, he was publicly claiming the Fischer team was trying to control his mind, suspecting his orange juice was drugged, or that chemicals were being pumped into the venue's air. The panic reached such a fever pitch that Soviet authorities actually took Spassky's chair apart and x-rayed it. The only thing they found were 2 dead flies in a lighting fixture. Spassky resigned shortly after. When people cannot find a logical motive for your actions, their anxiety takes over. They will literally wear themselves out inventing terrifying explanations for your moves. This tactic works exceptionally well if you find yourself outnumbered or cornered, as Confederate General Stonewall Jackson proved during the American Civil War. Look at the troop movements from the spring of 1862. Jackson was leading a small force of 4,600 soldiers. Instead of taking a defensive posture against the massive Union Army, he marched his men in continuous, looping circles that made absolutely no tactical sense. The opposing generals commanded 90,000 troops, but they froze. They delayed their march on Richmond, trying to decode a master plan that didn't actually exist, squandering their overwhelming numerical advantage. The exact same dynamic applies when you already hold the upper hand. Take Pablo Picasso. Picasso allowed his longtime art dealer Paul Rosenberg a fair amount of freedom in selling his work. Then one day, entirely out of the blue, Picasso told Rosenberg he would no longer give him any paintings to sell. There was no stated reason. Rosenberg spent the next 48 hours frantically wondering if Picasso had found another dealer. 2 days later, a highly anxious Rosenberg returned and offered a substantially higher price for the artwork, completely unprompted. Whether you are an outgunned soldier or an iconic artist, sudden unpredictability forces your opponents onto the defensive by hijacking their deep psychological need for a logical explanation. You can push this even further by using predictability as a weapon. By establishing a comfortable pattern, you create a smokescreen. This sets the stage perfectly for the 1974 heavyweight championship between Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. For more than 10 years, Ali fought with one rigid, consistent style. He danced around opponents, avoiding direct hits, and slowly wore them out. But before this match, Ali held press conferences publicly announcing he was dropping his famous footwork. He told the press he would walk to the center of the ring and slug it out with the hardest hitter in boxing. Absolutely no one believed him. Human nature dictates that a person's future actions will mirror their past habits. Foreman and his camp assumed Ali was just playing the comedian. The bell rang, and Al did exactly what he promised. He marched right up to Foreman and threw punches. Foreman was so utterly unprepared for this brawling strategy that he exhausted himself throwing wild counterattacks and walked straight into a knockout. You do have to apply this carefully. If you are in a deeply subordinate position at work or in life, relying on too much erratic behavior can backfire. It makes you look indecisive or unstable rather than powerful. But once you achieve a baseline level of recognition, the highest form of strategy is to operate with an absence of clear calculation. You leave the people around you grasping at shadows. Behaving in a completely expected, routine manner is the ultimate hallmark of a subordinate. To hold real power in any arena, you have to be willing to take the risk, break the board, and throw the completely inexplicable move.